Professor X Wild Reign begins in the Marvel Universe. Like, share and subscribe. Episode 1. Charles, there is an open class of yours today. Do you still want Hank to do it for you like before? However, I think it is necessary to remind you that you have missed 5 public classes in a row. Alolo the Stormgirl took the notebook and began to cross out Professor X's class schedule. Charles, sitting in front of the TV, smiled and winked. Counting what you just crossed out, I've skipped 6 lessons, haven't I? I can cross out next Monday's class, and then I won't have to bother you watching these soap operas. Orolo shrugged and said. She felt that she was becoming less and less aware of Charles. Charles Xavier, the famous Professor X, PhD in biology and psychology, has the strongest brain in the world. The most powerful telepathic leader of the equal rights movement dedicated to mutants. Creator of Xavier's School for Genius Jr. and X-Men. Since she had known Charles, Charles had held himself to extremely high standards. It seems to have seen through Orolo's inner thoughts. Charles said, Orolo, we should all stop and enjoy. Who would let a disabled person busy saving the world while giving children 3 lessons a week? Well, it looks like Charles, who is only 34 years old, is ready to retire. Orolo complained. That's right. Charles is still very old. It has only been 10 years since he and Magneto solved the Black Emperor Shao and avoided a nuclear war between the 2 superpowers. But the problem is, it's 2013. Loki leads the Zatori to invade New York as if it were right in sight. The Avengers have completed the formation of their original form. Iron Man, Captain America, Thor, Black Widow, and Hawkeye. No Hulk though. Explain that this is not the MCU universe. Of course, there should not be mutants in the MCU universe. It can only be said that this is a new universe with unforeseen changes in certain timelines. According to the plot trend, the next big event next to it is the Serpent Shield Insight Plan, and Ultron. I have to make a plan for Orolo not to go on vacation to Sokovia for the next 2 years. Charles stretched and said to himself. As a traverser. Charles is very satisfied with his current identity, and his powerful, telepathic ability allows him to have a certain self-preservation power in this dangerous American comic world. This is a power that even the apocalypse covets. The second is appearance. He crosses not old Charles, but young Charles, and with hair. Like James McAvoy, the actor wanted on TV. Full of innate aristocratic temperament. A pair of blue to almost transparent eyes, slightly drooping corners of the eyes, looking kind and sincere. No woman can resist these eyes that can read people's hearts. The only thing that was missing was that he had a gunshot wound to his spine and was confined to a wheelchair. As for this disadvantage, it was perfectly compensated by the system again. Like every crosser, Charles has a swing system that comes with the crossing. As long as you mess in the events identified by the system, you can get random treasure chests. Chests are divided into 5 levels: black iron, bronze, silver, gold, and supreme. In short, the rotten system is crude and simple. Since crossing over, because there are no major incidents, all Charles can put on is skipping class. Each skipping class is rewarded with a black iron chest. The previous 5 rewards were air conditioner that never uses electricity, storage space ring, dragon kettle of magical kitchenware, hands as stable as a surgeon, and eagle's vision. Congratulations to the host for successfully swinging and rewarding a black iron treasure chest. Charles was not surprised to hear the voice in his head. Nodes with no special events. It is impossible to get better rewards for ordinary swing rot. If you want to get rid of the disability of your legs, you must at least have to draw a silver chest. Open this chest in your consciousness, and the reward is cappuccino with unlimited refill. It's good, you don't have to make coffee. Charles took out the coffee cup from the storage ring, and the rich aroma of coffee beans came to his face, which was much better than Orolo's brewing. Xavier Genius Jr. School has more than 200 students, and none of them are good at making coffee. In the future, should we consider special talent in the admissions criteria? For example, a chef who can cook Chinese food, a seductive chick who can dance Latin, and a cute chick who can sell cute. While Charles was drinking coffee, looking forward to a better future, a mysterious phone call came in. Charles, there's something your X-Men need to do now. Director Fury, we're on vacation. Charles replied without hesitation. It's rotten, it's not chilling at all. On the other end of the phone, Maya Fake, who was sitting in the office of the Tricurved Wing building, was stunned. Since Charles founded Xavier School for Gifted Juniors 10 years ago, S.H.I.E.L.D. and Charles have been secretly cooperating. The X-Men solve the crisis that S.H.I.E.L.D. is inconvenient to come forward. In return, Charles sheltered a small number of mutant school in order to exist unharmed. This unequal cooperation lasted for a decade. For the first time, Charles simply rejected himself. Episode 2. Charles, I hope you understand that this is not a request, this is. Fury's order was not finished. There was a busy tone on the phone that beep, beep, beep. Charles hung up Fury's phone directly. Because he already knew what was going on. In Harlem, north of Manhattan Island, two big men are at war. Even without a brainwave enhancer, Charles's telepathy can cover the entire New York, a population of 8.5 million. This is the expressiveness of the world's first brain. Two mental swings of chaos, violence, and anger of the Hulk and Abomination appeared in Charles's mind. However, he did not intervene. The monster was made by Eagle Sauce himself, and he took care of his own. Swing rotten. Pure and rotten yourself. Isn't it fragrant while drinking coffee and watching TV? Congratulations to the host for the successful swing and reward a gold treasure chest. Gold chest. Feeling the golden treasure chest that appeared in his consciousness, Charles's blue eyes suddenly brightened. Sure enough, it was the same as I thought. Majel Fackman allows himself to solve the problem of the Hulk and Abomination, which must be the key event identified by the system. Messing up on this matter can be rewarded richly. However, the gold chest was still unexpected for Charles. He thought it was a silver chest reward. The Hulk and the abhorrence of this battle are not particularly important things. Compared to the invasion of the Chitauri, Ultron destroys the world, the Sokovia Agreement, and the Celestial God Group awakening is too far behind. There is one possibility left, I fell out with S.H.I.E.L.D. this time. Superimposed on the delicate relationship between the X-Men and S.H.I.E.L.D. The swing reward has been raised by one notch. That makes sense. Charles rubbed his temples with his fingers. Fall out and fall out. He is not Professor X, who values peace. If it weren't for the unknown attitude of Guy who sat in Karmatage, there would still be a bug in the time administration. Charles brainwashed the world and made it okay for mutants to be Draco. Throw the thoughts in your head aside. Charles opens the gold chest. The reward is Black Emperor Sebastian Shaw's energy absorption. Energy absorption can absorb including but not limited to weapons, heat, kinetic energy, and potential energy. The absorbed energy can be released or used to enhance their strength, speed, and endurance. Includes recovery injuries and age reversal. This variant ability is very powerful used by the Black Emperor. But not powerful enough. Because energy absorption cannot resist psychic power. If Charles has energy absorption and cooperates with his powerful telepathy, then he has no obvious shortcomings. Washington, D.C., Tricurved Wing Building, S.H.I.E.L.D. Headquarters. Majafak. Damned Charles. Fury slammed the phone on the table, and the loud noise made the agents outside the office shrink their necks. In his only remaining eye, there was simply fire spouting out. Always available. The X-Men, who do all kinds of dirty work, actually go on strike. This was something Fury didn't expect. Now there are two big men fighting each other on Manhattan Island, and what are his Avengers doing? Thor returned to Asgard. The US team is in Washington, and the whip is beyond reach. Iron Man has been disappearing for some time since the villa was attacked. As for Black Widow and Hawkeye, it is clear that the problems of Manhattan Island are not something they can solve. At this moment, Phil Coulson did not knock on the door and walked quickly into the office. As one of the few henchmen of S.H.I.E.L.D. Fury, Coulson has such a privilege. Chief, there is good news from Manhattan Island, the Hulk has stunned another monster. Oh, and the Hulk is the one with the hair, and we think he's more human-like. Coulson explained in his usual tone. The so-called we, naturally, are other agents of the command center. Fury's face was a little dark. The one with hair? Feel more human-like? Does this sound like human language? However, Fury did not calculate with Coulson, but reached for the documents in his hand. This is all the information obtained by the World Security Council after putting pressure on General Ross. It records the true identity of the Hulk. Bruce Banner, a super genius with 7 PhDs. During a military weapons test, he was transformed into a monster by gamma radiation. As for another monster in Harlem, it is General Ross's subordinate who has been hunting down Bruce Banner, and he has transformed himself into a monster. Seeing that Fury's face was always dark, Coulson said, "Director, at least the Security Council has a goal that should be held accountable." Fury placed the file on his desk. I am not worried about the Security Council. S.H.I.E.L.D. responds to a global paranormal crisis, and we assess, manage, and control those who are extraordinary. Now there is a man, no. It's a group of people challenging that rule. I need to go to New York alone, I need to know what he's thinking. Extraordinary, a group of people in New York. As Fury's confidant, Coulson probably understood that he was talking about mutants. Do you want Natasha to go? She's an expert in this. Fury shook his head. No, this is a covert operation, and S.H.I.E.L.D. agents can't hide it from Charles. As for Natasha, I think it's more appropriate for him to go to that Hulk. Can't be a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent? Coulson thought about it, and suddenly had a candidate in his heart. Director, I think I can recommend someone. Episode 3. Coulson recommended candidates from the High Tide organization. The High Tide group is made up of a group of righteous hackers, and since the Za'Tari invasion of New York, the public believes that the government has hidden many secrets from the public. The High Tide organization is dedicated to unearthing these secrets and make it public. Rising Tide organized a hacker called Sky, which Coulson had been observing for 2 months. Originally, he admired Sky's hacking skills and prepared to recruit him to his squad. However, not long ago, Sky awakened some kind of superpower that can cause vibrations. It's not yet certain if Sky is a mutant. We can guide Sky a little bit and get Sky into that mutant school. A person with a sense of justice like this, she would be very keen to collect everything about the X-Men. A strong sense of mission and justice is always the easiest to use, isn't it? Coulson said with a shrug. Hear about Coulson's plan. Fury, the king of agents, was amazed. A young girl who has nothing to do with S.H.I.E.L.D. Even if Charles entered her head, nothing would be found. Coulson, sometimes I think you're better suited to lead S.H.I.E.L.D. than Hill. Xavier Gifted Junior School. On this area of nearly 1.5 square kilometers, there are medieval castle-like teaching buildings and dormitories. Underneath the school, there is a huge space built according to the military base. Charles locked himself in a training room, and after blowing up 30 grenades, the energy absorbed finally cured his old paralysis. Finally solved the pain point of going to the toilet. Charles muttered with relief. A person who is paralyzed from the waist down. Compared with some functions that almost fail, going to the toilet is definitely the biggest pain point. Fortunately, this problem is solved now. At this time, he sensed a flicker that brought back a person. When I came to the ground, I saw Sky looking around with an uneasy face. Because just now a child with horns on his head ran over. And she herself, in Harlem, used her ability to knock out 2 gangsters. The detectives did not care about the gangsters who robbed, but desperately pursued her. Fortunately, someone saved themselves. A beautiful girl opened a purple portal, and with a whoosh, she was here. Clarice, I think you need to explain what happened. Storm asked with her arms folded. Bringing a stranger back to school is a dangerous thing. Now Clarice is still a 15 or 16-year-old child, a senior student at Xavier's Genius Junior School, with a delicate oriental face. Ms. Monroe, she's a mutant and detectives are hunting her. Clarice said in a sweet voice. Storm Girl's full name is Orolo Monroe. In Western Appalachian, close friends can be called by their first names. Just like Orolo, Charles. If it is unfamiliar, or the relationship between superiors and subordinates, it is best to address the surname and add a suffix such as the corresponding identity. It's like Clarice calling Storm Ms. Monroe. She's not a mutant. At this moment, Charles's gentle voice came. Turning her head and seeing that Charles was not in a wheelchair and was walking on his own, Storm Woman's eyes were full of shock. Orolo, I'm a PhD in biology, there's nothing strange about that. Charles spread out his hand and solved the doubts in Storm Girl's heart first. Then back to the point. She's not a mutant, but she's a lot like us, maybe one day we'll be allies. I am the principal of Xavier Gifted Junior School, you can call me Charles, and I welcome you to stay here. Charles extends a hand of friendship to Sky. Sky looked at Charles's sapphire-like eyes, inexplicably feeling at ease, so she also stretched out her hand. Charles said half-jokingly, Miss, I hope you can control your abilities, I don't want to lose this very important right hand. With a poof, Sky was amused by Charles. Charles, who had only said 2 words when the Storm Girl looked at the girl and smiled, shook her head. Charles, I heard that Sakura Country has a profession called cowherd, and that must be suitable for you. Charles blugged. He already had a deep understanding of Storm Girl's poisonous tongue. Orolo, your poisonous tongue should be used in more important places, such as the little fat man who should strictly control calorie intake. Charles pointed to a white chubby white man about the length and width at one end of the corridor. Little Fat held the unfinished pizza in his hand. A dumbfounded look. Who am I? Am I there? Why is everyone watching me? If Charles didn't know Sky, then there would be no problem for Twinkle Clarice to bring back Sky, who was being chased by the detectives. 15 or 16-year-old girls are full of a sense of justice. But the future Shockwave woman Sky has a deep relationship with S.H.I.E.L.D. In the drama version of S.H.I.E.L.D., she is Coulson's right-hand man, awakening the abilities of the Inhumans because of the Tyre-Gone crystal. In this world, Sky's ability awakening must have been advanced. Getting people to come undercover to school, it's really like a Black Brine style. Charles doesn't have any affection for Nick Fury. An ultimate result for the righteous. In his eyes, everyone is a pawn that can be used, and they can also be discarded. Nick Fury interprets justice from his own standpoint. Mutants, Inhumans, or other abilities are exploited objects. Assess, control, destroy or utilize. This is the consistent practice of S.H.I.E.L.D. If Charles had conspired on any plans, he would certainly not have let Sky stay in school. The point is that he doesn't. He's just rotten. Drink coffee, watch dramas, soak up chicks, and swing rotten. Life is so good, why bother yourself? Congratulations to the host for successfully placing it, and reward a bronze treasure chest. Episode 4. Hearing the system give out rewards, Charles was more sure of his thoughts. Sky is the undercover agent that S.H.I.E.L.D. stuffed in. I know that I still let it go, and the system judged this behavior to be rotten. And a bronze chest was rewarded. Compared to the black iron treasure chest obtained after skipping class, Charles is looking forward to what the bronze treasure chest can open. Because the black iron treasure chest is basically useless. When opened, an item is automatically stored in the storage ring. The reward this time is Elder Wand. One of the Deathly Hallows in the Harry Potter movies. With powerful magical powers, any magic released through the Elder Wand will have extraordinary power. But it didn't work for Charles. Charles doesn't know magic at all. If you want to learn magic, do you want to go to Karmatosh? Charles took out the Elder Wand in the storage space, played with it, and then put it back. It is impossible to learn magic, it is impossible to learn it in this life. You can only wait for the system to give a reward. Charles came up with the idea of putting it on a rot, and the system did not give any reward for it. For events where the system determines the swing. Charles summed up 2 points. The first point is that just like a gentleman's deeds, it is useless to think in his heart, and he must take practical action. Second, pure metaphysics. For example, skipping class can get a rotten reward, sleeping lazy is not, sleeping until you wake up naturally every day, or not giving a reward. Next. After more than 10 days of rotten, Charles finally had the mood to accompany the students to participate in a practical class. It's not that you don't want to mess up. The main thing is the reward of the black iron treasure chest, which is quite chicken. Let me see who came, I thought some people forgot to start a school. Storm teased Charles as he approached. In fact, Charles can let go of the burden and enjoy life. Storm Girl still approves. Charles really gave a lot for the world, for the mutants. He has a superior status, rich possessions, the ability to mutate without being bothered by appearance, and the strongest brain in the world. As long as Charles wanted to, he completely lived a life that was the envy of the whole world. But he was resolute. Dedicate yourself to the great cause of fighting for the legitimate power of mutants. Storm Girl had heard some voices. Some mutants would always attack Charles's papers on the X gene. It is believed that he called people who awakened the X gene mutants. It is the source of the contradiction between humans and mutants. It was Charles who separated the mutant group from the human race. But actually, the mutants who say these words are the kind of excellent types who can hide their abilities. Among the mutants, there are a large number of mutants whose appearance is alienated. A large number of mutants whose abilities are out of control and cannot be effectively controlled. Human beings will always respond with the greatest malice to beings different from themselves. With or without Charles's thesis. Those mutants who are alone and exposed to the eyes of the people are the targets of persecution, which is inevitable. Charles told all mutants with his paper. You are not cursed, you are not the only ones, you are no different from humans, you do not have to feel inferior to your image. You are just a lucky and unfortunate handful of hundreds of millions of people. In this world. And countless others like you. And Charles put it into action. This Xavier School for Gifted Teenagers sheltered many young mutants. Orolo, I'm just thinking about something. Charles's sapphire-like eyes are exceptionally deep. He did think about something. He wanted to make a shocking incident. However, looking at the youthful, genuinely laughing mutants on the grass, Charles decided to adjust his plan. This Xavier Genius Junior School can still be kept. Although a crosser. But he fused all the memories of Professor X. Professor X rescues these mutants from all over the world, and most of them are the most unfortunate of the mutants in the group. Like a child with horns on his head, he was abandoned by his biological parents from birth. John the Burning Man, because of a loss of control of his abilities. The parents reported their son to the authorities. Twinkle Clarice, when Charles finds her, she and the phantom cat Katie are both thieves at the bottom of Hell's Kitchen. Hell's Kitchen, where Jesus went, had to be ransacked. Two teenage girls, how difficult life should be. I can't save all the mutants, but I can make it so that they don't have to go back to their old lives. Charles said secretly in his heart. He originally wanted to disband the X-Men and close the Xavier School for Gifted Youth. Since then, it has ridden the dust on the road of rotten. Hi, Charles. Skye spotted Charles standing next to him and greeted him with a smile. She lives in a dormitory with Twinkle Clarice. The little girl admires Charles very much, and even Skye cherishes Charles's great achievements. 10 years ago, Charles defeated the Black Emperor, the leader of the Hellfire Club. Prevented a nuclear war between the two superpowers. 2.5 years ago, Charles defeated Magneto. Destroy Magneto's evil plan to turn everyone in the summit into mutants. So now when Skye looks at Charles, he has little stars in his eyes. A young, handsome, powerful man with a sense of justice. But Skye's ideal boyfriend. Episode 5. Are you still used to it at school? If there is anything you don't adapt to, you can tell Orolo. Charles's smile is always approachable. It made Skye's heart pound like a deer. Storm rolled her eyes, feeling like she was going to retract her thoughts about Charles's understanding. Because Charles unburdened himself and enjoyed life. As a result, she bears a burden that she should not bear at this age. It's good, but I have some things that I didn't have time to take. Skye said. After a night of thinking, Skye felt that she should spend some time at Xavier Gifted Junior School. Definitely not because Charles is super handsome. But federal detectives and gangsters were arresting her, and she needed to hide. In addition, the superpower of vibration cannot be effectively controlled. There needs to be someone to guide her in the use of her abilities. But thinking about what happened yesterday, it is possible that federal detectives are looking for her, Skye added. It's not particularly important, it's okay after a while. Skye is a super hacker, and what she wants is a top-of-the-line laptop. No receiver is required to achieve satellite internet access. It is said to use Shield Black technology. In addition, there is important information stored in the computer. If you don't mind, I can get it back with you tomorrow. Nothing else, I just haven't had a good stroll in a long time. Clarice should have told you, I was before. Charles looked at his legs, then spread his hands. Skye knew about Charles's paralysis in both legs. Because before yesterday, Charles also had to sit in a wheelchair. Speaking of which, I came to Xavier Genius Junior School. Charles developed a potion to restore himself. I am really Charles's lucky star. At noon that day, Charles announced something extremely important. The X-Men, who had been established for more than a decade, was disbanded. The world needs justice, but the world doesn't need the X-Men. Because of the existence of the X-Men. Didn't make the mutants better off. The previous Professor X wanted to build a bridge between mutants and human friendship. Now Charles just wants to put it on the table. Doing temporary work for black-hearted Maya Fake Man? Shit is not. At this time, there were a total of 8 X-Men members. In addition to Charles himself, there are Storm Hero, Hank the Beast, Logan Wolverine, Jean Grey, Laser Eye, Steel Lux, and Darwin. Logan and Darwin are not here. Most of the time, Logan rode Harleys around North America. He was always looking for lost memories. As for Darwin, he can automatically mutate the ability to adapt according to the external environment. In a way, he is the most survivable mutant. Darwin did not like to go out in the field, he preferred to shut himself in the laboratory, combined with his variant ability to do research. Like most scientists with eccentric tempers, Darwin was the kind of person who didn't bother me with scientific research unless the world was over. The disbandment of the X-Men is a small matter. Everyone agreed that there was no need to inform Darwin. 5 people standing in front of Charles at this time. Orolo didn't care at all about disbanding the X-Men. She only cares about the children. As long as Xavier Gifted Junior School is not closed. Jean has always been Charles's little fangirl. Charles, as long as you decide, I support it. And lo and behold, how empathetic. It's just that the personality of the Black Phoenix has always been a huge hidden danger. Beast Hank said, Professor, I have long said that those guys in S.H.I.E.L.D. are unreliable, and I'm fed up helping them wipe their asses. After Hank finished speaking, everyone's eyes fell on Steel. I don't, no opinion. Steele's answer was not surprising at all. It was difficult for him to make useful comments. Because the Steele of this world is the ability to awaken at the critical moment when the crane is smashed into the head. So he doesn't just have a bad brain. Will also stutter. I usually like to draw alone. When everyone expressed their opinions. All that remains is the laser eye. Laser eye hesitated. Charles, we are the most powerful mutants you picked out. If we don't fight evil, then what are we going to do? Charles looked at him with gentle eyes. Scott, everyone who is capable should protect those around him, shouldn't he? We have an entire school to protect. Whether it's the military, robots, or aliens, no one can harm our students. Charles's words rekindled the fighting spirit. Above this base is Xavier Genius Junior School, home to more than 200 mutant children. Whatever threat comes here, that's all going to go over them. Meanwhile, S.H.I.E.L.D. is facing a difficult task. Air Force One was attacked. Although Stark saved everyone, the most crucial president was captured. AIM founder, Aldrich Killian, wants to kill the president in front of the whole world. Fury, it's time to use your freak legion. Tony paced back and forth restlessly and said to Fury. He was worried not by the president, but by Pepper. In addition to the president, Killian captured Pepper and injected her with the desperate virus. Fury frowned. Tony continued, King of the World's spies, I know your hidden hole card, now is the time to use it. You still want me to release the video and expose your hypocritical lies in front of the people. Fury knew what Tony was talking about. The X-Men have done a lot, but S.H.I.E.L.D. has taken the credit. And erased traces of the existence of the X-Men. But this kind of information control is limited to ordinary people. This segment is not valid for Tony Stark. Okay, I'll give Charles a call, but I'm not sure they'll help. Fury dialed a phone, thought about it, and pressed hands-free. Episode 6. Charles didn't expect that he received such a high frequency of calls from Fury. Is this really treating them as temporary workers? That's fine. I'll give Fury a showdown later, Lao Tzu won't do it. Charles, I want to ask you for help. Fury said with a calm face. He still remembered the embarrassment of being hung up on the phone not long ago. Director Fury, I'm just the principal of a private school. According to the laws of the country, citizens have reason to refuse unreasonable requests from the authorities. Principal Xavier, law-abiding citizens, don't own a fighter jet, let alone open a freak school. Tony interjected. This was the first time Charles had dealt with Tony. The same arrogance as in the movie. Even if he has experienced the metamorphosis from Playboy to Iron Man. Arrogance has always been the most prominent label on Tony. Then Tony Stark can have dozens of sets of combat armor? When exposing each other's old roots, Charles was not merciless at all. Dozens of sets of combat armor? Fury's only eye, gaze suddenly fell on Tony, full of sharpness. The power of the Iron Man suit. Obvious. Dozens of Iron Man suits that can simply subvert eagle sauce. Tony made dozens of suits under the nose of S.H.I.E.L.D. The intelligence system of S.H.I.E.L.D. is not aware of this at all. Feel Fury's sharp gaze. Tony spread out his hands. This is PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. After an alien invasion, I want to build something to keep the world safe. In fact, it is. After the Za'Tari invaded New York, it is not known whether it was palladium poisoning or severe psychological trauma. Tony became a workaholic. He locked himself in his studio all day long. Only more Iron Man suits can make him feel safe. Fury said coldly, then you should think about how to explain it to the Security Council. Tony rubbed his ears impatiently. Take your eyes off Fury. He said to Charles on the phone, headmaster of Freak School, when I rescue Pepper, I want you to look good. In the face of Tony's provocation, Charles seemed calm. You can call the entire Avengers over, Xavier Genius Junior School is not afraid of any challenge. Also, I've disbanded the X-Men. The mutants I lead are not risking their lives to solve problems that have nothing to do with us. Fury didn't expect that Charles would actually disband the X-Men. The X-Men are one of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s cards. There are no more X-Men. Radical mutant organizations like the Hellfire Club, the Brotherhood of Mutants, and these radical mutant organizations. It was up to S.H.I.E.L.D. agents to deal with it. In that case, the casualty rate will be very high. Without the help of the X-Men, Tony had to dispatch his Iron Legion to save the President and Pepper. Same as the plot of Iron Man 3. Harbor Pier, Iron Legion takes on Killian's desperate virus warriors. Eventually, Killian was blown to ashes by a small missile. Tony also blew up all the Iron Man suits. Because of this public steel legion, he could not explain it to the Security Council. Tony is the top capitalist of Eagle Sauce. He is well aware of the logic of the thinking of those at the top. Even if it is a powerful weapon, but if it cannot be checked and controlled, they prefer to hide it. Only the existing location is guaranteed. He can do the right thing. So, Tony can compromise for the right outcome. This is the difference between him and Captain America. It is also one of the root causes of the outbreak of future civil wars. From the television, Charles watched the rescued president. Killian is dead, and there is not even slag left. However, people who were injected with the desperate virus were not swept away. Hydra will find those people. The future Centipede project is based on the desperate virus. Of course. None of this had anything to do with Charles. The sound of the rotten system sounded, and he began to count the rewards beautifully. Congratulations to the host for successfully placing it and rewarding a silver treasure chest. Congratulations to the host for the successful swing and reward a gold treasure chest. Charles showed a surprised expression. Happiness came too suddenly, directly the reward of 2 treasure chests. But think about it. You can almost figure it out. Refusing Fury's orders and dismissing the X-Men are 2 things. As for in the rotten event identified by the system, which one swings badly rewards more. Charles felt that the X-Men should be disbanded because the impact was more far-reaching. The first silver chest opens to reward the Black Shadow Corps Ninja Regiment. The Black Shadow Corps is a force directly under King Terra of the Black Shadow Kingdom in The Adventures of Jackie Chan. The ninja group has the highest appearance rate in the anime. The strength is the most ordinary. But on the whole, there is no shortage of the Black Shadow Corps. In addition to the Ninja Regiment, there are 8 corps such as the Troll Regiment, the Night Bat Regiment, and the Mantis Regiment. Summoning the Black Shadow Corps requires the consumption of spiritual energy. The spiritual energy of ordinary adults can summon up to 10 black ninja soldiers. If it is Charles, his spiritual energy is compared to ordinary people, like an ocean and a stream. Even Charles himself does not know how much he can summon. Anyway, the formation of the Corps is absolutely no problem. After opening the silver chest, Charles opened the gold chest. Episode 7. The gold chest opens and rewards Voldemort template. In the Harry Potter world, Voldemort is the most dangerous and powerful dark wizard, which can be called the ceiling of strength. Though this ceiling is not so strong in the world of American comics. But Voldemort is proficient in countless magics, such as the original recovery, the apparition transfiguration, the Avada curse, and so on. An all-rounder. Sleepy someone sent a pillow, with the Voldemort template, that, Elder Wand, will be useful. Next. Charles takes Skye to Harlem to get a computer. He didn't let Clarice open a portal, and then he lost his original intention of being alone with his sister. Traveled back in time to the world of American manga. Also got the swing system. If you don't enjoy life well, is it like the previous life, to be a migrant worker who is oppressed by capital and has no spare time? Charles drove a silver gray vintage car from the garage. Mercedes 540K. A classic sports car passed down by the Xavier family for 3 generations. Under the daily maintenance and improvement of Beast Hank, this car is no less powerful or functional. Wow, that's so cool. Skye saw the classic car and covered her mouth in shock. There are quite a few cars in the school garage. But this one is undoubtedly the most pulling. In fact, Charles has bought the most off-road vehicles over the years, which are more suitable for X-Men missions. Miss Skye, please. Charles made a gesture of invitation to his co-pilot. Those blue eyes are dazzling. Skye was scrambling in his heart and sat in Charles's passenger seat. The car drove away from Xavier's School for Gifted Youth. The school is just outside New York. Not far or close to the central city. 2 people sitting in a car, it would be too embarrassing not to say something. In the past, when Skye was alone with people, he would swipe his phone to alleviate this embarrassment. But with Charles, she didn't think it should be so rude. So as not to leave a bad impression on Charles. Skye, if you have perfect control over your abilities in the future, have you ever thought about what to do? Charles was the first to break the silence. Imagining the future is undoubtedly the best way to open the chatterbox. It will bring 2 strangers closer to each other. Be an Avenger? I think many people in this world, if they have the ability, will dream of becoming an Avenger. But, to be honest, I don't want to do that. Skye said. Charles turned his head and blinked, expecting Skye to explain why. The Avengers obey S.H.I.E.L.D., and S.H.I.E.L.D. obeys those politicians. Whatever is in this world, as long as it is mixed with those politicians, it will become dirty. Sky is full of contempt for Eagle Sauce's politicians. The Rising Tide organization she belongs to is to dig up the secrets of the authorities. Some time ago, the Harlem Hulk abhorred that battle. General Ross is to blame. The Security Council has therefore held Ross accountable. However, the spokesperson for SHIELD News. This black pot was not buckled on the head of the Eagle Sauce government. They threw out a biological research institute. Used as a scapegoat. The Rising Tide organization found the whole truth in the internet. Yes, they only consider polls and votes. I think the content of their meeting must be how many points the vote in the next election will fall if the people know that the culprit is Ross. Charles nodded thoughtfully. The two share the same point of view, and the chat is very pleasant and relaxed. After arriving in Harlem, Sky was in front of Charles, no longer restrained. And the mood is very, very good. No, she's a hacker. It's still a top-notch kind. This means she has few friends in reality. Members of the High Tide organization, that's just comrades, and they only contact online. So, there is simply more to say today than Sky said in a year. Harlem is a district with a high concentration of Black and Asian people. As a person of color, Sky also lives in this place. Of course, there is another reason, that is, the relatively low prices in Harlem compared to Midtown make Sky like this place. As for the issue of policing, Harlem has a Black vigilante active at night. After his appearance, the security in the area at night has greatly improved. In addition, the Viper Gang rules the entire Harlem district. As long as you don't touch the Viper Gang. The Viper Gang, those who do big business, will not trouble you. Park your car in a curbside parking space. Charles accompanied Sky to her doodle car. I didn't know that inside a black Cadillac on the side of the road. 3 gang members kept an eye on the RV. These 3 are Gene-He's subordinates. They needed to make sure that Sky hacked into United Construction, and that the downloaded account was not seen by a second person. That was evidence that Kim had used the United Construction Company account to bribe. The target, in the middle of 143rd Street, was the female hacker and a man next to her. Gang members who spied on them called to inform others. Kim doesn't like people who don't do things well. They must be foolproof today and catch people in Gene-Ha. Cadillac, 3 people got out of the car at the same time. They approached the RV while touching the weapon on their waist. Meanwhile, at the end of 143rd Street, a 7-seater SUV also came. Episode 8. Charles knew everything that was going on. 143rd Street, how many people are hostile to them? As long as you use the telepathic ability, like an X-ray scan, you can be determined. Previous Professor X didn't like to do that. It will not casually enter into other thinking. Charles did not have such a high moral code for himself. And a funny guy. Charles looked at the rooftop of the building next door. Gwen Stacy, who thought she was hiding well, felt that she was looking at Charles. That feeling. It's like doing something with a weak heart and being caught by my father. But she's a ghost spider. Even if she was separated by this distance, she felt that her eyesight was a little insufficient. How can an ordinary person look at himself? I must have thought too much about it. When Gwen saw Charles turn his gaze, he felt even more surprised. Just now, the man just inadvertently skipped his gaze. As everyone knows, Charles has eagle vision. His vision range is 36 kilometers, which is 8 times that of a normal person. This distance is not stressful for him. Gwen's appearance in Harlem was a complete accident. Because Harlem has its own vigilantes. Luke Cage. A very strong, righteous black big brother. Although there is no clear territorial division between the vigilantes. But New York is a place where desire and prosperity are intertwined, and there is always sin. Queens had a lot of trouble all day, and Gwen couldn't keep it busy. However, the gangsters watching on 143rd Street today. It was the fish that Gwen caught last night in the robbery gang. She quietly followed. I want to take people away. But the gang seems to be plotting something. Gwen is ready to wait and see. Maybe by following this clue, something else can be pulled out. I saw these gangsters approaching the RV. And to pull out weapons. Well, it's time for the ghost spider to show its power again. Gwen ejects spider silk, which she uses to leap between buildings. It's all complicated. It's actually just a few blinks of an eye. Gwen, wearing a white tight-fitting suit, fell from the sky and kicked a gangster over. Then with a quick punch, he knocked the person out again. Immediately, both hands sprayed spider silk, fixing the last gangster's two hands on a wall. That wall is very characteristic of the black community. The entire wall is covered with huge graffiti in bright colors. At this time, on the SUV coming from the end of the street, there were several heavily armed gang members. Charles protected Skye so that the stray bullet would accidentally injure her. "Charles!" Skye shouted, she visibly nervous. For a hacker, the street fire and the appearance of superheroes are obviously outstanding. Charles turned his face to her and gave her a reassuring smile. Skye was less flustered. In front of her is Professor X, who has saved the world from danger several times. Gang members in front of it. It's just sprinkling. Indeed, Charles could keep everyone on 143rd Street still, including Gwen the Spider, if he wanted to. But Charles did not want to expose his strength. Is it considered rotten to let Gwen uphold justice and stand by and watch himself? Well, it's well worth trying. This criminal gang has no challenge to Gwen, and with 3 times 5 divided by 2, she knocks everyone down. "Hey, sir, you're safe." Gwen jumped on top of a car and waved at Charles and Skye. Speaking of which, Gwen is a first-year freshman at Imperial State University. A girl of this age, young and lively, solved a group of gangsters. Gwen was triumphant, expecting applause and praise. "Thank you, Spider-Woman," Skye said. Ghost Spider is Gwen's self-proclaim. For this good neighbor of the New York citizen, everyone prefers to call him Spider-Woman. A little thing. "Oh, are you the shockwave woman wanted by the FBI?" Charles seemed to see Gwen's eyes suddenly widen behind the spider mask. FBI, throughout the FBI. It is an agency under the Ministry of Justice. Superhuman cases are generally handled by S.H.I.E.L.D. However, on the day Skye used the concussion ability, he only overturned a few cars, there were no casualties, and the property damage did not exceed $30,000. The famous S.H.I.E.L.D. did not fall to pay attention to such small cases. Recall what Skye did on that wanted list. Gwen put away her vigilance and said, "Listen to me, the sudden awakening of ability will cause a lot of trouble. The first time I jumped in the air, I smashed into a Buick. I ran away in fright, and then secretly helped his family mow the lawn for a month. I think you can make it clear with the FBI." What a warm-hearted little spider. Charles couldn't help but think when he saw Gwen persuading Skye. It's a pity that Gwen doesn't understand. At this time, the Inhumans were not well known. Skye is mistaken for a mutant. And the world is full of prejudices against mutants. At this moment, Gwen's phone rang, and she suddenly remembered that today, the mentor organized a very important activity to visit Osborn. "Sir, if you are her friend, then persuade her." Gwen waved at the handsome Charles. She shot spider silk towards the street lamp, and then swung up, and another spider silk shot at the building. Several swings in quick succession. Gwen disappeared into the jungle of steel. Congratulations to the host for successfully placing it, and reward a bronze treasure chest. Episode 9. Sure enough, there are rotten rewards. Open the chest, it is Sendu X5. Sendu is a magical plant in Dragon Ball that can quickly heal injuries and fill your stomach. Looks like you're thinking about moving to the city, Charles said to himself. There is a saying that ordinary people in the Marvel world are equivalent to turning on hard mode. In New York, that's hell mode. There are too many villains and superheroes in New York to count. In addition to the traditional points of Spider-Man, Daredevil, Green Goblin, Kim and Mr. Negative. And Blade Warriors and vampires. And maybe Hellboy. There are also rotten rewards for standing by and watching, then this is definitely a paradise. Charles, what did you say? Skye asked. I said I wanted to open a counseling room in New York. That would definitely make a lot of money. There was just a shootout here, and a superhero appeared. But look at these idle people, whose numb hearts need to be saved. Skye looked around as Charles said. It's like what just happened, it's just a trivial matter. Hot dog stalls on the street remain open. Wandering singer. Singing hip-hop songs at a breakneck pace. People who did not catch the bus complained by swiping their mobile phones. Skye pouted and said. After the invasion of the Zatari, the New Yorkers have developed a strong heart. However, a lot of people suffer from PTSD, and that's true. Leaving 143rd Street, Charles drove to Hell's Kitchen. This belongs to Manhattan Island. An elegant, noble, retro, and luxurious car drives into Hell's Kitchen. I don't know how many pairs of jackal-like eyes have been stared at. Addicts, thieves, fugitives, and gangsters fill Hell's Kitchen. There are 8 streets in total, but the sin here is not even 8 Satans. Even in broad daylight. Charles saw robberies taking place or about to take place in the tight alleys, white-face deals, and super friendship deals between men and women. The Chidari devastated New York, and Hell's Kitchen is said to be the least affected community. Sky looked out the window at the largely intact building and said. Charles nodded. He knows it. Because of the Zatari invasion, the X-Men were also involved in the battle plan, and they were responsible for stopping the Zatari in Brooklyn. The fighting troops of the Zatari entered Hell's Kitchen and were ransacked by the gang. If a Leviathan behemoth had appeared over Hell's Kitchen, I suspect they must not be thinking about escaping, but hollowing out that big guy, how much main they could earn. Sky was amused by Charles's statement. That's an exaggeration. But greed and ferocity are indeed things carved into the bones of the gangsters. Park the car under an old building. Nelson Murdoch LLP is located in this old building. This is Hell's Kitchen's only private law firm. Charles learns that Sky hacked into United Construction, downloaded gold and used the company's account to bribe evidence. This plot is a bit familiar. In the Daredevil episode, Peggy the accountant of United Construction Company discovers the secret. Daredevil Matt helps Peggy with the lawsuit. As a result, Daredevil confronted the underground emperor of New York, Kim Hee. To use a bribe evidence to bring down Gene He? No kidding. Gene He's criminal empire has a territory beyond imagination. Charles, who is obsessed with rottenness, is not in the mood to deal with Gene He. So, he decided to get the distorted plot back on track. Let Lawyer Ma go and break Gene He's head. Charles, is this car parked here? Is it really okay? Getting out of the car, Sky had already seen several groups. That eye looks like a hunter examining its prey. No one is going to move this car. Charles closed the car door and laughed. A telepathic force spread, and he asked these people to protect the car as if they were protecting their own lives. I saw the gangsters who were extremely greedy before. All gathered around the classic car. And both have a hand on the weapon. It's like a bodyguard protecting the car of some big man. Cafe across the street. A middle-aged white man reading a newspaper. He spread the newspaper on the table and tapped his fingers on the tabletop. Look at this scene with interest. Hell's Kitchen has an interesting guy. Zebdiah Kilgrave, purple eyes, showed a high fighting intent. He is the Purple Man. A villain who can control others through language. Today he met someone with similar abilities to him. Matt Murdock, a blind man who is a lawyer by day and turns into Daredevil by night. Blindness in both eyes makes Matt's other senses different from ordinary people. He can even be like a bat. Build a diorama in your mind through sound. When Charles pushed the door in, Matt got up to greet him and extended his hand to Charles accurately. Matt, Murdock, what is your case? There is no case, but we have something that you may be interested in. United Construction Company bribery accounts, Charles said, the whole of New York only you dare to file a lawsuit in court. Sky interjected. United Construction Company? Matt rummaged through the name. That's a big company in Midtown Manhattan, and you're going to go to Hell's Kitchen to find a lawyer. It feels like a 3-star Michelin hotel, hiring a chef at a restaurant in the middle of nowhere. It was a deep surprise. Because the boss behind United Construction is Wilson Fisk, he has another name. Charles explained that the words, gold, have not yet been exported. Matt's palm clenched fiercely. Needless to say, Wilson Fisk, that's a big guy. Episode 10. Charles handed Matt the downloaded USB flash drive. After the matter is gone, the merit and fame are hidden. I believe that soon, Kim will no longer stare at Sky. Because Lawyer Ma, from this matter, he will officially join Gene from this matter. Throwing the pot out, is it considered rotten? Charles waited for half an hour, and there was no systematic reward. Obviously, the system did not identify it as a rotten event. At the Midtown Garden Hotel, Charles and Sky had a sumptuous and enjoyable dinner. Coming out of the hotel, the night was slightly cool. The whole of Manhattan is bustling with lights. It would be even more brilliant if it weren't for post-war reconstruction, when many streets were still closed. Charles, there is a 190-meter-high Ferris wheel on Staten Island, and it must be very beautiful from where you overlook the night view of New York. The night breeze ruffled Sky's hair, and her eyes shone brightly. If we go to the Ferris wheel to play, we won't be able to go back to school. Charles said. Yes, yes. Sky glanced to the side, and his tone became a little unnatural. Can't go back to school. Then you can only stay in a hotel. Young men and women open rooms together in hotels. It must have been a wonderful night. Still a scheming girl. Charles commented on Sky's careful thinking. From Manhattan to Staten Island, if you drive around a lot, it is the most convenient ferry. The classic car drove into the expressway, and the engine was like a monster, with a loud roar. This is Hank's modified engine. The maximum can reach 750 horsepower. Surpasses the latest Ferrari Purosang. Charles drove against the clock, because it was too late to be sure if there were any ferries to operate. When you are about to reach the port, there was a big traffic jam ahead. Skye opened the window and looked outside. She still didn't know why, she didn't know what was happening. Charles has already known what happened through telepathy. Just now, the ghost Spider-Gwen and the Green Goblin fight. The pumpkin bomb blew up a huge billboard. Billboards lay across the middle of the road. This caused a big traffic jam. In the troubled New York, this can only be regarded as a small scene. Because of the traffic jam, the plan to go to Staten Island fell through. But you can fast forward to the next step. For example, go to the hotel to open a room, complete a more in-depth communication, and so on. Wait until the road is clear. Charles drove to a hotel not far away. The Tower Resort. This is a global chain of resort hotels, with a total of 86 hotels worldwide. Charles knew so well. Because the Tower Resort is his property. If he didn't have strong capital, how could he support the expenses of Xavier's gifted junior school and the X-Men? But the Chitauri invaded. In Queens, the largest high-tower resort hotel, it was knocked into ruins by a Leviathan behemoth. Post-war reconstruction of New York. The White House called on the capitalists to donate, and Professor X donated nearly 3 years of profits. Charles entered the Tower Resort and thought so much. Because of him, the capitalist of Eagle Sauce. It's not up to the name. There is not much cash flow available. Hank wanted to build a second Blackbird, but Professor X dismissed it because he didn't have the money. On the 27th floor of the hotel, there is a business suite. Charles swiped into the room, his eyebrows furrowed slightly. Because there are people in the room. This is the 27th floor. When Skye turned on the light, he saw a man wearing a spider mask facing them. Hi. Gwen raised her hand and shook her fingers a little weakly. It's you, I didn't expect to meet again. Seeing clearly that it was Charles and Skye, Gwen said unexpectedly. Charles looked out into the balcony. The Tower Resort suite balcony was open, so Gwen could jump in. It can only be said. Fate is wonderful and magical. You were injured by the Green Goblin? Charles, who withdrew his gaze from the balcony, set his gaze on Gwen's lower abdomen, where there was a pool of blood. This time, the Green Goblin is equipped with a new type of pumpkin bomb. At the same time as the explosion, blades will be fired in all directions. The principle is the same as the new grenade. However, the power is 2 or 3 steps higher. Unexpectedly, Gwen was pierced by a blade that pierced his lower abdomen. So she used spider silk and fled to the Hightower Resort. Gwen explained the reason to the two. Charles suddenly reached out and touched the neck of Gwen's combat suit, who subconsciously took a fighting stance, but the sharp tingling pain in her lower abdomen made her fall on the bed again. At this time, Charles had already got what he wanted to take. A 1/2 peanut kernel-sized, black miniature tracker. Gwen saw the tracker. Behind the mask was a pale face. Finished. The Green Goblin will definitely find it here. She wasn't worried about her own safety. It's the Green Goblin, that madman, who will definitely blow up here. She will implicate a lot of innocent people. You guys hurry up. No, I'm leaving. Snatching the tracker from Charles's hand, Gwen clutched her bleeding abdomen and stumbled away. That beautiful background makes people feel distressed. Charles stopped her. Trust me, the Green Goblin won't attack here. If he wants to kill you, he won't wait until now to do nothing. He's waiting for you to come home and kill you and the people you hold dear. It is possible to kill them first in front of you, and then kill you last. I know better than you the logic of this madman's thinking. Here, Charles. I don't know if Gwen is relieved. Or is the picture described by Charles too thrilling? So much so that the little spider's young mind suffered tons of damage. Gwen softened and fainted on the carpet. Charles spread his hands to Skye. Indicates that it is none of my business. Meanwhile, the Green Goblin hears a series of Charles's words through the tracker. Kill the person Spider-Woman cherishes first, then kill her. Wahahaha, this is really a devil's idea. Episode 11. To be honest, the Green Goblin didn't think so much. It was his flying machine that was also damaged during the battle. The Green Goblin replaced the spare aircraft at the secret base. He shuttles through the night sky. That hideous mask makes him like an ugly witch on Halloween, riding a broom against the background of the huge moon. Wahahaha, Mr. Demon, let me see who you are. The Green Goblin couldn't help but look forward to it in his heart. He doesn't just want to kill Spider-Woman. He still has to meet for a while a guy with a devilish genius idea. That man must be like him. A terrible, twisted, crazy soul is nourished inside. Close to the Tower Resort. I saw a tall building. In the boundless darkness, one shadow ninja after another appeared. Shadow ninjas either crouch or stand, those scarlet eyes. Like a bat cave, countless vampire bats. The Green Goblin felt a chill that grew from the bottom of his heart. Norman Osborn. A voice appeared in Green Goblin's mind. The Green Goblin was flabbergasted. It's not just identities being broken. More vocal sudden appearance. He could be sure that the electronics had not been hacked. Who are you? The Green Goblin stopped flying, his hands on his helmet, at a loss. I am the Lord of the Dark Shadow, you can call me Holy Lord. Charles communicates with the Green Goblin through telepathy, and at the same time concocts an identity for himself. Master of the Dark Shadows? Are these shadow ninjas your men? The Green Goblin watched as more and more shadow ninjas emerged from the darkness, and couldn't help but be creepy. More than just the rooftop of a tall building. It's all the rooftops around it, densely packed with shadow ninjas. This could literally start a war in New York. These are my dependents. Charles replied. Dependents are more pressing than subordinates. Sure enough, when the Green Devil heard the word dependent, he was in awe. Charles uses the Black Shadow Core to show off his muscles against the Green Goblin, in order to add a mental steel seal to him that is loyal to the Holy Lord. The Osborn Group has hundreds of billions in assets. It is a giant enterprise in the field of biotechnology and energy technology. Compared with Marvel's famous Stark Industries, it is only slightly inferior. Take control of Norman Osborn. Not only did Charles get a lot of wealth. At the same time, there is also the right to speak. In Eagle Sauce, Capital controls the country from all sides. Even Congress is controlled by Capital. Why did Professor X fail in the movie? Because he just wants the people to change their opinion about mutants. But never thought about it. Mutants first need to change. Grab wealth, gain capital, seize power. Like the underground emperor of New York, Kim Hee. Jin's ability is not outstanding in Marvel. But Jin's criminal empire, from top to bottom, involves countless high-ranking officials, countless capitalists, countless elites, and gangsters. The existence of Jin Hee, even S.H.I.E.L.D., can't take him. The Green Goblin, as instructed by Charles, gave up his pursuit of Gwen. Inside the High Tower Resort, Charles took out his wand and cast a healing as ever healing charm on Gwen. This spell heals wounds, and bones heal. Skye brought a basin of water from the bathroom to wash Gwen's wounds. Shocked to look at Charles with the Elder Wand in hand. Charles, are you healing Spider-Woman? Skye said uncertainly. Of course, I'm a doctor of biology, and it's reasonable to use magic to hurt you. It's quite reasonable. Skye lowered the basin. The nights are as cool as water. Skye sat on the balcony, looking at the Hudson River in the distance in the night. This time is not a good time to enjoy the river view. At 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning, the sun rises and the golden sun shines on the sparkling water, which is the most beautiful time of the day. Skye opened her laptop, and she liked to keep a journal when she was quiet. This is a habit developed from an orphanage. There is a famous person who says that a serious person keeps a diary. But Skye is really a serious person. European and American girls, like her who are 19 years old and still guarded like jade, have not even held a man's hand. This is really rare. Originally, Skye was ready to give herself to Charles tonight. But the appearance of Spider-Woman broke the beautiful night. But Charles actually knows magic, and the way he uses magic to save people is really handsome. Skye obsessively typed a line in his diary. Anyway, it's your own encrypted journal document. No one can see except yourself. However, Skye overestimated his hacking skills and underestimated S.H.I.E.L.D. even more. After Skye was taken by Clarice to Xavier Gifted Junior School, Coulson found the laptop and planted a stealthy virus. He knew Skye had a habit of keeping a diary. Therefore, there is no need for any eavesdropping means that may be exposed. Just flip through Skye's diary on time. You know what Charles and the X-Men are planning. Now. Coulson flipped through his diary on his computer. Magic? The strongest mutant in the world can actually do magic. Did he go to Karmatosh? Coulson didn't care about what time it was, and hurriedly contacted Director Fury. If Professor X has something to do with Karmatosh, that could be a real big deal. Episode 12. After discussing with Coulson, Nick Fury agreed that Charles had been to Karmatage. Because of the magic of Karmatage, people who are disabled after a car accident can act like normal people, and even play basketball. Charles, who had been paralyzed for 10 years, could walk. This in itself is unusual. Charles can still use magic today. Chief, what are we going to do? Coulson asked. Karmatage, the Ancient One mage, recorded in the Shield archives. In New York, the fog capital and the Shonjiang, there are holies of the most holy. But the Ancient One mage had never established contact with Shield. As far as I know, the Ancient One has protected the world for centuries. She doesn't do harm to the world. However, what she does with such an existence may contain some deep meaning. Until you figure it out, Coulson, you are responsible for continuing to monitor. I'll warn Tony so he doesn't go to Charles's trouble for a while. Charles in the Manhattan Hotel could not have imagined. He casually used magic to save Gwen. Shield mistakenly thought that the Ancient One had made some kind of meaningful move to the mutants. Anyway, it's always a good thing. Get up early in the morning. Charles saw that the master bed was empty. Gwen was gone, leaving only a note of thanks on the cabinet. Manhattan was hazy in the morning. Gwen swung the spider silk and swung quickly towards Queens. Her father was New York Police Commissioner George Stacy. So her tutoring is very strict. If George finds out, he has not returned all night. Oh my God. Gwen didn't dare to think about it, and her father would have suspected that he was fooling around with some people. Maybe he will take advantage of his position to find out that person. Come to think of it. Gwen couldn't help but think of Charles's face. That's a great gentleman. He did not take advantage of the danger to take off his mask. All of New York, who wouldn't want to know the true face of a ghost spider? Is it because you are not attractive enough? Apparently not. It can only be explained that Charles was a great gentleman. Damn, I don't even know his name. Gwen suddenly became annoyed. New York, whether or not to see it again in the future, has become a question. Return to Xavier Gifted Junior School. Charles was planning to open a counseling room. The location is right in Hell's Kitchen. The most chaotic place in the whole of New York. This is the first thing. The second thing is the rectification of the school. In the past, Xavier Gifted Junior School mainly taught basic cultural courses. And hands-on courses most of the time. Professor X thinks of mutants as warriors in his heart. Just like the Spartans, adult Spartans, both men and women, are good warriors. But the greatest wealth of mutants is definitely not only combat effectiveness. The ability to count is innumerable. Can shine in the everyday sphere. Such as computer programming, finding rare veins, medical treatment, deep-sea salvage, and so on. This time took Norman Osborn and made Charles realize. When mutants grab wealth and gain status, can Eagle Sauce's Sentinel plan continue to be implemented? That's right. It's Project Sentinel. Plans for the mass extinction of mutants. That's even scarier than Thanos snapping his fingers. The Ninglu-level Sentinels in the comics are invincible even if the apocalypse is invincible. Even if all the Omega-level mutants united, in the face of a large number of Ninglu-level Sentinels, they were defeated again and again. Charles's daily mess does not mean that there is no sense of crisis. If measured with 1 to 10. The sense of crisis brought by Thanos is only 6 degrees at most. The sense of crisis of the Ninglu-level Sentinel is 10. You can try it, Osborn pays anyway. Charles said to himself. The rectification of the college means that to increase the cultural curriculum, it is necessary to go to Ivy League universities to hire top professors. There are also many specialized courses. Each professional course must be taught by a senior professor. After clearing your mind, Charles asked Stormgirl to draw up a plan. It is the current ability of more than 200 students, focusing on the direction of development, and the list of professors who need to be hired. All in all, it's a lot of work. It took Stormgirl nearly a week to get the job done. When she delivered the proposal to Charles's office, I saw that Charles was sitting in front of the TV, watching the TV intently. The Stormgirl who has always been poisonous. I'm about to carry forward the traditional mockery. But her gaze was attracted by the content on TV, and after a long while, she let out an exclamation. My God, the mutants assassinated the president. Orolo, you have to correct your statement, it was an assassination attempt and failed. Storm looked at Charles resentfully. Does it make a difference? There is no difference for mutants. The authorities will definitely take action against mutant organizations. Charles, we need to find that mutant. Storm Girl said. This is not about being an X-Men on a mission to maintain world peace. It's about proving one's innocence. Avoid White House targeting them. Episode 13. Proposal for Storm Girl. Charles leaned back on the couch and shook his head. He knew the ins and outs of the matter. William Stryker, the mastermind behind the scenes, used the body fluids of the Illusion Master to control the Night Stalker. Let the Night Stalkers assassinate the president. He did this in order to obtain White House's authorization to take military action against Xavier's Genius Junior School. Then control yourself and take out the mutants of the globe with your brainwave booster. Other words. Either way, Stryker would target Xavier Gifted Junior School. Orolo, since the mutant who assassinated the president has nothing to do with us. Why should we care? Charles asked rhetorically. But Charles, S.H.I.E.L.D. and the military may take this opportunity to attack us. How many people do you think that Hulk in Harlem died in that destruction? Instead of responding directly to Storm Woman, Charles asked a question. The Storm Girl thought for a moment and said, there may be hundreds of people, or hundreds of people. Does this have anything to do with our current situation? Charles said, 577 to be exact, but the Hulk, who won that battle, joined the Avengers. As long as it is strong enough, it can be exempted from everything. Peace in schools cannot be built on the pity of opponents, we need to make them feel awe. Although I disbanded the X-Men, Xavier's Genius Junior School, without X-Men, is stronger and more terrifying than ever. When we show the fangs and claws of the beast, it is the world that should tremble. Storm Girl understood. Charles was ready for war with the authorities. Somehow. Instead, she had a feeling of blood boiling. Well, Charles, like last year in Brooklyn, no number of people can cross our barrier. Instead of going after the Night Stalker, Charles was rewarded with a silver chest. The reward is metal control. This ability is similar to Magneto's ability. Of course. It is just pure similarity, and the big difference is difficult to calculate. Magneto's ability is the electromagnetic force, one of the 4 fundamental forces of the universe. It is theoretically possible to change the magnetic field of a planet. An electromagnetic force field can be created around the body. Metal control is a simple large magnet that controls all metal substances. Just as Charles thought. At this time, the White House. William Stryker was summoned by the president. He knows more about mutants than S.H.I.E.L.D. does. He once worked for Bolivar Teslac, the founder of Trask Industries, that is, Teslac, who made the Sentinel robot. Because of disagreements, Stryker left Trask Industries. He secretly studies mutants. The Edmund alloy in Wolverine's body is Stryker's masterpiece. In front of the president, Stryker clarified the dangers mutants do to society. Your Excellency, as far as I know, after Magneto's arrest, the largest mutant organization at present is the Mutant Academy outside New York. This assassination is most likely done by them. I need White House authorization to take military action against that academy. The president pondered. Mutant Academy? That is to say, there are a lot of mutant children. Colonel Stryker, I can give you authorization for military operations, but I don't want to see news on the news about the casualties of mutant children. In next year's midterm elections, I don't want any surprises. S.H.I.E.L.D. also learned that Stryker was going to take action against Xavier Gifted Junior School. It wasn't just Stryker who went to the Tricurved Wing building in person. Request the assistance of S.H.I.E.L.D. Coulson learns from Sky's diary that the atmosphere is tense at Xavier's Gifted Junior School. Chief, this will be a war. Cole said to Fury. He did not use such terms as fight or conflict. The terrible word war was used. Hill also set his sights on Fury. In response to the doubts of the 2 henchmen, Fury said, I rejected Stryker, neither S.H.I.E.L.D. nor the Avengers will participate in this operation. But there's nothing we can do to stop the president from authorizing. Speaking of which, I'd love to see what Charles is trying to do. Wolverine Rogan, who has been wandering the American continent. After the assassination of the president, he returned to Xavier Gifted Junior School on the evening of the 3rd day. He is the being who has experienced the most wars among mutants. Even if you lose your memory. But the remaining instinct in his heart made him understand that Xavier's Genius Junior School was in big trouble. Hi Charles, I heard Laser I say you disbanded the X-Men. Logan dressed as a Harley Knight and walked into the office with a cigar in his mouth. When I saw Charles, who stood up to greet him. The bearded face showed shock. Chatter, you can actually stand up. Logan, if you swear again, I'll keep you from talking for a week. Charles laughed. Logan held a cigar in one hand and rubbed his chin in the other. He sat down on the couch with a grin. Just about to ask about the current situation. Charles's face moved slightly, and said, "Those guys are here, 13 gunships, and a mechanized infantry battalion." The one who knows the mutant the most in the entire Eagle Sauce is actually Stryker. Episode 14. The war power of a machine infantry battalion in Eagle Sauce is very strong. A full-formed machine infantry battalion, at least about 800 people. It consisted of 4 machine infantry companies, and 1 anti-armor company. It has 54 M2 infantry fighting vehicles, 56 cubic meters cavalry fighting vehicles, as well as armored personnel carriers, anti-tank missile fighting vehicles. Heavy firepower includes heavy machine guns, self-propelled howitzers, and grenade launchers. But Stryker temporarily replaced the weapons of this infantry battalion. Mainly against mutant sonic weapons and stun guns, only retaining some of the heavy firepower for breakthroughs. After all, living mutants are extremely valuable for research. Rogan heard the name Stryker and patted his head with a headache. Chatter, I seem to know this person. Chatter, Charles, you listen to me, I didn't want to swear. Son. Logan felt like he was getting darker and darker. Damn colloquialism. Logan, let's go meet them. Charles smiled and patted Logan on the shoulder. Logan moved his mouth and found that he could still speak. As long as you don't scold Charles. I think he won't think about himself. Inside the school. Stormgirl Arolo, Laser-Eyed Scott, Phoenix, Beast Hank, and Steel Lux Pyatt changed into battle uniforms, and they came out of their respective rooms and followed Charles one after another. In addition to the original X-Men. The younger generation of Burning John and Poppy the Iceman were also allowed by Charles to participate in the battle. They are both approaching 18 years old. If the X-Men were not disbanded, they will become new blood for the X-Men. Right now, they have to fight for their schools. Skye also walked out. Charles, I think I can come in handy. To this, Charles nodded. In recent times, Skye has been able to control his abilities. Her shockwave ability is well suited for large-scale combat. After Skye, her roommate Twinkle Clarice, and Clarice's best friend, Katie the Phantom Cat, also ran over. The two of them were pressed back into the room by Charles's head. You can also play single-player games for an hour, and after an hour, turn off the lights and go to bed on time. The two women pulled their faces together, pitiful like little milk cats. Come outside. Countless searchlights converged on them. Before the operation, Stryker had blocked all online signals. Like the president said. The next day, he wouldn't see any news about the death of a mutant child. Principal Xavier, if you hand over the murderer of the president, we can avoid this conflict. Stryker, sitting in the helicopter, said hypocritically. There is no excuse for adding to sin. Charles did not argue with Stryker. There is an old saying in the East, hit with one punch, so as not to come with 100 punches. For those who insist on finding death, we are happy to satisfy him. Charles ordered. The storm girl flew into the air, and a pair of eyes turned white. Tornado after tornado, falling from the sky under her control. Boom boom. A huge wind howled. All gunships had to make an emergency landing or they would be swept away by tornadoes. Jean stretched out her hands, and an invisible barrier blocked all attacks for Stormgirl. Sonic cannon, prepare sonic cannon. Stryker shouted. This is General Ross's weapon against the Hulk. Trask Industries dissects mutant krakens and develops special weapons. By adjusting the frequency of the sound waves. Make it specific to a certain person or a certain group. It was one of Stryker's secret weapons in this military operation. Laser Eye put his hand on his glasses, crimson laser jetted, and the light full of destruction raged in the night. Laser passed. One infantry fighting vehicle after another with sonic weapons. Like a heated dinner knife, scratched butter. Combat vehicles are constantly destroyed. The flames burst into the sky and the explosions were endless. This amazing destructive power. John the Burning Man was stunned. Mr. Scott is also too handsome. That's right. The students of Xavier Genius Junior School did not have an intuitive understanding of the strength of the teachers. And Scott's character. It belongs to the usually silent type. Who would have thought that Scott, who had a very weak sense of existence in the teacher, was terrifying and terrifying. Charles, aren't you ready to strike? With your abilities, you can end the battle in the blink of an eye. Logan threw his cigar on the ground and said. Charles's eyes shone with wisdom. Xavier School of Gifted Juniors is a whole, and we want the authorities to understand that there is a group of mutants in New York, and they are powerful and untouchable. Instead of having one person protecting this school. That's not enough deterrence. Logan shrugged. Fear is more powerful than words, I remember someone saying it to me. But why do I think you're shirking your responsibilities? Damn beast intuition. Charles couldn't help but complain. Of course, he complained in his heart, he just asked Logan not to swear. Like Logan said, Charles is shirking his responsibilities. Just imagine. Professor X solved the crisis with telepathy. Then S.H.I.E.L.D., White House, and the Avengers will all make strategic plans for him. How will he happily put it on in the future? 6 kilometers away from the main battlefield. Black Widow Natasha is monitoring this war. Episode 15. Chief, can you see the footage I transmitted? There is a mutant who destroyed almost half of the combat vehicles of the mechanized infantry battalion. Natasha took a deep breath and said. He is in a position that is exactly the distance that the signal cannot be shielded from. So inside the 3 curved wing building. Fury, Hill, and Coulson are watching the transmitted footage in real time. It's Laser Eye Scott Summers. Fury said. Chief, do you know that mutant? What Coulson asked was also Natasha's doubts. He destroyed 2 Leviathan behemoths in Brooklyn. Scott is Gamma class among mutants. Natasha overheard them talking in the headset. Gamma class? Do mutants have a hierarchy? Good question. Coulson thought to himself, his gaze falling on Fury's face. Fury didn't intend to hide it, nodded. Mutants can be divided into 6 levels, from high to low, which are Omega level, Alpha level, Beta level, Gamma level, Delta level, and Epsilon level. Among them, the 2 levels of Delta and Epsilon account for the vast majority. The Delta level is weak, but it belongs to human form. The Epsilon level is a variety of alienated forms, and its ability is also very weak. Gamma level abilities are very strong, but there are major flaws that affect lives. Just like Scott the Laser Eye, the laser jets from his eyes can't be controlled without wearing special ruby glasses. Beta is the same as Gamma, but with minor flaws or alienations. The Alpha level is the most perfect mutant, with powerful abilities, just like humans. Charles, Magneto, Eric are all like this. As for the Omega level, 7 years ago, S.H.I.E.L.D. discovered the fluctuations of Omega level mutants. But nothing came of it. Natasha, who was far away in New York, whispered, it seems that even if you bring the Avengers, you won't get benefits. Outside Xavier's gifted junior school. The war is still going on. Wolverine, Beast, and Steel, 3 melee types, have all rushed into the enemy camp. It's like a tiger in a flock. Charles paid attention to several young people around him. Sky's one-handed shock wave can violently shake people or cars out. If the strength is stronger. The instantaneous impact can shatter human internal organs and bones. If the controls are subtle enough, a pistol can disintegrate in a second. This is the direction of Sky's future training. As for the Iceman and the Burning Man, they are 2 extremes of personality. The same for the first time participating in such a battle. John the Burning Man enjoyed the thrill, and his hands kept throwing bursting flames. The high temperature generated by the flame can burn people to death at extreme times. Poppy, the Iceman, on the other hand, creates ice walls for defense. Or freeze people with frozen air. This ice is just right and not fatal. But John will burn the target with flames, the next moment Poppy freezes the man. Like a deliberate provocation. Seeing this, Charles rubbed the corners of his eyebrows. These 2 people have incompatible personalities. In addition to the natural character, there are also reasons for ability. Flames always represent passion, fierceness, and impulsiveness. Cold ice is calm and wise. Right at this moment, Poppy froze a target with freezing gas and was not incapacitated. Seeing him covered in frost. Speed is only slightly affected. The flames thrown by John were dodged by him rolling on the spot. I saw this man pull out 2 guns from the back of his waist. Almost without aiming, they shot Charles and Poppy one after another. This distance is too close. Plus surprise. Jean wanted to protect them with the Nyan power barrier, but it was too late. Just in the nick of time. Charles raised his palm, and the carriage of a car was pulled by him in the air. Bang, bang. The bullet hit the carriage with a dense sound. Maja Fak. Fury of S.H.I.E.L.D. suddenly got up. The one-eyed light erupted with palpitations. Magnetic control? This is Magneto Eric's signature skill. Professor X, Charles, why can I use Magneto's abilities? Don't say Fury. Wolverine Logan was also taken aback. Magneto is an old rival to the X-Men. Since joining forces to stop Black Emperor Shao 10 years ago. The main enemy of the X-Men is Magneto, a mutant militant group. Of course. Now is not the time to question Charles. The soldier armed with 2 guns jumped on the spot. With his body in midair, he shot Charles from a more tricky angle. Agent Zero. Charles remembered the identity of the man. Stryker's right-hand man, Agent Zero, a very weak Delta mutant. The ability is to control adrenal hormones. But the devil training allowed Agent Zero to give full play to this ability. This time without waiting for Charles to make a move. Poppy pushed his hands into the air, and a huge ice pick pierced Agent Zero. Facing the manifestations of Poppy's violence, John was flabbergasted. Charles looked at him unexpectedly. Poppy said, "Headmaster, this is war, and if I sympathize with the enemy in war, it will be cruel to you. If it weren't for Charles's ability to control metals just now, bullets will hit them." Suddenly, a human image is a cannonball flying towards Charles. Charles lifted the previous carriage again. Bang! Make a loud noise. A humanoid silhouette appeared on the carriage. Chatter, Charles, can't you find something softer? Wolverine, who slipped from the carriage to the ground, shaking his confused head. Then look again at what knocked him away. A big green and ugly guy 3 meters tall.